So I don't know about you, but when I was growing up, I was taught to be colorblind, meaning all people are exactly the same. We don't see the color of their skin. They are all people. Yeah. Raise your hand if you were taught that colorblindness is the right way to be.
That's right. I'm colorblind.
And I'm not meaning colorblind as in not seeing red and green and things like that, but as in colorblind as in not seeing skin color. We just don't see it. That we are all one happy human family. Raise your hand if you were not taught to be colorblind when you were growing up. If you take a quick poll around the room, a lot of people with skin color like me were taught to be colorblind growing up, and a lot of people with skin color like you were not taught to be colorblind growing up. Isn't that interesting?
Well, I wasn't even taught.
You weren't taught?
I mean, I guess I just walked into the color.
What do you mean?
I don't know. My mom never even had a conversation. My family is so diverse. We have white people. We have, in St. Lucia, we actually call, we say Native Americans, we call them Indians. They're East Indians. So we have Indians in our family. We have a very diverse family, and everyone looks so different. So we kind of never had that conversation. One person was light-skinned, the other person was just darker.
So when I was growing up, I don't know if my parents said this, but definitely in school, if I was like, look at that black boy, the teacher would be like, no, don't say that. Don't call him that. True.
Why do you think that's the case, that we can't even say black?
I don't know. So this is one of my questions. Like, if you look at me, you can probably tell I'm a woman.
Yeah.
And it's okay to say I'm a woman.
Yes.
You can probably tell I am not 25. Oh, so you can't say that. Okay, so apparently...
I was actually about to say, well, you're like 30?
Yes.
No, I'm serious.
No.
No?
So there's this question about women and age that sometimes is a little taboo, right? So you can probably tell that my legs work, that I'm able-bodied.
Yeah.
So there are things you're allowed to talk about me. But then if you mention my whiteness, it's like, oh no, I don't have a color, right? And I clearly, whether I was taught that out loud or taught that like implicitly just by my experiences, I was taught not to talk about color my whole life. And I teach students in teacher education, and one of the things we talk about is how it's okay to notice color. And in fact, people's color often is their strength. And you can be a white person, and it's okay to be white too, right?
So you're a professor here, and
yeah.
How does that work when you have students coming into class and they're colorblind?
So I don't tell them they're lying, but I think you might actually treat everybody the same. I might actually treat everybody the same, maybe. Maybe there's a little implicit bias. Maybe we're not so good at that.
Yeah.
But let's say we are.
I'm not good at that.
Treating everybody the same?
Yeah, I try my best to, but I can't.
So let's say we try our best, right? But if you look at the data, the disparate data that makes some people so much more likely to end up in jail, some people so much more likely to end up in certain fields, some people so much more likely to live in poverty, some people so much more likely to get pulled over, some so much more likely to have bad access to healthcare, and it falls along racial lines, like, you've got to notice that, right?
Yes.
Because otherwise, what else is going on, right? And so when I talk about the school-to-prison pipeline, for example, and how boys and boys of color are often on that pipeline in a way that white boys are not, or white people are not. Now, do some white people and white boys end up in prison? Absolutely. But if you look at the racial disparities, like, what's going on in schools? Like, something must be going on in schools because those numbers shouldn't exist at those proportions, right?
Yeah.
So I'm kind of like, well, what if we acknowledged color? Like, what if we talked about those? Because then we can talk about what's actually happening.
Yeah.
And otherwise, we're ignoring what's actually happening. And then on the good side of things, if we ignore part of somebody's identity, like if you tell me you don't see me as a woman, I'll be like, what? Like, you're just a person, you're not a woman. And I was like, shut up.
So there's a
Right?
danger to it.
Yeah.
So do you want to talk about some of those dangers? And
Well, I think it erases part of your identity, right? It takes away part of who you are. And just as much as I'm proud of being a woman, I'm proud, well, I don't know, I turn red and white. I don't go light brown or anything. But, you know, this is my skin color, and owning it as part of my identity also helps me confront the implicit privileges I experience every day. So I got pulled over recently because I was driving home.
did?
I did. I didn't do anything wrong. No, I didn't. Seriously, I didn't do anything wrong.
didn't?
This policeman told me that I didn't stop at that red light. No, stop sign. But I know I did because I was looking at a statue in the park. So he pulls me over. I have no shoes on, and I have no wallet. And I was like, "Why are you pulling me over?" And he tells me. I was like, "Oh." So I wanted to say, "You're wrong," but I didn't say that. I said, "Oh, I'm very sorry." He said, "Can I see your registration?" I said, "No, I don't have it with me. It's in my wallet. It's at home."
that wouldn't happen to me.
I asked him if he wanted to come to my house to see it.
Oh, that's a solution.
And he said no, that next time I shouldn't run the stop sign and to go on my way. I was like, I'm dropping my kid off at school, and so I didn't wear I don't
So
know why I
that
had shoes
definitely
on.
wouldn't happen to me.
Why not?
I don't know, it just won't. I mean, I got pulled over. I did go, it was like five
So
miles.
you were speeding.
I was, yes, I was. Yeah, I got pulled over 5 miles per hour. Over the speed limit, I got pulled over. And
That's the same experience so far. We both got pulled over.
But yeah, nothing I would say got me out of that ticket.
So you got the ticket anyhow. And how are you feeling when that happened?
I was so nervous. I was thinking to myself, well, I know I wasn't speeding. Like, it wasn't that fast. I've seen people go faster coming off of 25.
So you know how I felt? I felt annoyed.
Re-
I was like, how dare you? How's that for privilege? Right? I was
Hey, I'm
like,
feeling
how
nervous.
dare you? Right? And here you were nervous. And so to me, that's part of the privilege. Because the chance of me, and this is after all the Sandra Brown stuff that happened
Yeah.
last year, right? Like, still in that moment, in my neighborhood, which is how do people call it? A changing neighborhood. Talk about the racial undertones of that, right? So I'm in a changing neighborhood. And, but I still felt completely entitled. I really did. And I was like, oh my, like, so there's the part of me going, oh, look at my privilege. And there's part of me saying, thank God I have privilege. Right? That I was actually using it in that case.
I have a story for you. I was
What
going,
do we need a microphone for?
you know, and
Hang on just a second. We might look for
A microphone.
a microphone.
Thank
It's
you.
just so the camera can hear you as well.
Hi, I'm Alice Boucher, CEO of Endangered Missing Persons Advocacy. I have an experience for you. When I lived in Baltimore, actually a suburb of Baltimore, I was going to Glen Burnie. I was going 15 miles over the speed limit. Yeah, I got stopped. I gave him my information, everything. No, I didn't get a ticket. And yes, I even had a military sticker, but I had a scrubs on, a lab coat, and a stethoscope. I said, I'm going to work. Don't want to be late. Willing to take the ticket, he wouldn't give me one, because they would have told my husband. My husband would have been reprimanded for what I did. He just told me, don't do it again, we got you in the system. And that's not a laughing joke, you know. I've worked as core team nurse, and I know better. I've worked with many head injuries. It's just I was rushing to get to work, so after that, if I was 7 minutes or 8 minutes, well, hey, you know, I'm working a double today.
Thank you for
So
sharing.
I think that brings about even just,
If you give it to him, he'll hold it.
even kind of the intersections of identity right there.
Yeah.
So not only, so sometimes, we just acknowledge certain identities of people, and we don't necessarily say, well, oh yeah, you're a white woman? No, I don't even see any of that. So some people just say, oh yeah, you're just a guy. I'm like, okay, but I'm also black and gay. And sometimes I'm flaming, just so you all know, and I'm proud of it. I'm proud of it. And, but sometimes people choose not to take any of that into consideration. How do you think that compares to being just colorblind? And what are the dangers of that also?
So, I might not know your identities unless you tell me.
Yeah.
But I think there's this difference between the cultural identity I think I hold, and then the cultural identity you put on me when you see me. So I walk on stage, you see me, you decide things about me before I've said a word, right? And we all do it, and we do it for protective reasons from way long back. And so, I think sometimes those identities clash, and for some of us, those identities clash a lot less. And I think it's easier to go through the day, because if my identities match up, I don't have to negotiate my identities all the time, right? So I can spend my energy on other things. And if your identities clash, you might be like, oh, I need to tell you I'm gay. No, I don't like that girl. I don't want to date. That you're going to have different issues because of the different combination of identities, right? And then I think on the other side, sometimes like a white person can get pulled over and get thrown in jail erroneously as well. It totally happens. But if you look at the statistics, and this is one of my favorite ways to think about it, and I often talk about gender when people can't talk about race, right? So if you say there's 9 men in a room and 1 woman in a room, all 9 men insult a woman, all women in the room insult a man. How many insults does a woman receive?
Should I guess?
Yeah, guess.
10.
Hopefully she only gets 9.
Did you hear me? 10. Oh,
Why'd
she
you say
only
10?
it was a random number. I thought, oh my goodness, it could even be 100. Because sometimes I see it happening.
So even if everybody only did 1, she gets 9, right? He only gets 1, even if everybody only did 1. Each individual only does 1. She's going to get so much more just by those cases. And so even when bad things happen to people you don't expect them to happen to, it's not happening at the same rate. We're not in the same sorts of danger. So, and then depending on our identities and which ones we have to negotiate when, I think some days you have to be a lot more steeled to go into your day.
So I'm just getting more and more curious to see what everybody else is thinking. You want to join our conversation? No, I didn't hear you. Do you want to? Yeah? So we actually have a mic set up right there, so you could come in and join the conversation.
You're on it.
Hi, I'm really short. I'm sorry about that. Anyways, one thing that I was thinking about when it comes to intersections of identities and something related to colorblindness, I guess, is when you're saying, like, if you look at me, you can tell that I am a woman. One thing that is like an issue with this is the fact that sometimes you can look at somebody and you can't tell they're a woman.
Right.
Like, I often have people look at me and be like, obviously you're a young black woman. And I'm like, actually, I'm a transgender male and my pronouns are he, him, his, but thanks for just looking at me and not assuming of what's happening with me. So it's like, that's something really important to also acknowledge, that sometimes when you look at people, you can't tell what their identity is.
Right.
Yeah.
And I was definitely meaning me right now. Like, you don't know my history or my past either, but I really appreciate that, because I think sometimes, and when we feel awkward, right, sometimes then we're even more like, I don't know what to say and I don't want to say something wrong. And like, that fear of saying something wrong often stops us from having these conversations. So.
And I do think, these conversations always have to happen because we get so afraid. Thank you. Anybody else wants to join our conversation?
I'm not going to get up to the mic because I speak very loud. My only question is, why do we care? Why do we care? We recognize that there's differences, but why do we care?
Do you want to?
Yeah. For the mic, for the filming purposes, it's important, but that's okay. I can restate it. So the question is, why do we care? Right? Why do we care about these differences? We can acknowledge them, but why do we care? If we all had similar experiences, it wouldn't matter so much, right? So there's this disabled activist, her name's Corbett O'Toole, and she's in a chair and has been for a very long time. And somebody asked her about, like, oh, poor you, you're in a wheelchair. And she said, you know what I want for you? If tomorrow you become disabled, that you can still have the same experiences in life that you have today. I was like, what a great way to explain what we would like out of equality, right? Yeah. And so I think I wouldn't care so much if other people could experience a lot of the privileges that I experience. For me, that would be my reasons. And so if I felt like everybody could be let off when a police person pulls them over, everybody could have a same chance at high levels of education, high levels of healthcare, enough food on their table, I don't think I would care then. I don't know. What about you?
Well, no, with that question, I just kept on thinking, we live in a system where we have to care because our realities is that when someone walks up to me, they do see the color of my skin. That's not something I could just rub off if I try really hard. And it's scary to think, but people judge me. People assume things based on that. And so for me, that's why I care about it, because we're trained to care about it. So because we're trained to care about it, we just act on it.
Yeah.
So I actually want to piggyback on that too. I think my name's Alejandra, I'm a social work major. And I think when we think of the concept of color blindness, a lot of us like to think like it's good because we see everyone the same, we should treat everyone the same. But I think it's kind of a disguise to kind of deny the discrimination and oppression that people of color face every day, whether it is blatantly discriminating something or if it's institutionalized discrimination. So I think it's if you don't, for me, I care, it's because if I don't accept that, if I don't realize that, I'm contributing to, the problem. So that's kind of my response to as well of why we should care.
So,
Thank you.
Something really powerful about what you just said, it also takes away from part of your identity, right? So my children are biracial Indian from India, although he wasn't born there. So they're shades of brown in a way that I am not. And my 6-year-old, who's now 7, was in kindergarten and in 1st grade, and she's had about 5 or 10 negative racial incidences about the color of her skin already. And she comes home wanting to have my color skin, my color eyes, to look like Elsa, And I'm like, you can be beautiful in your color skin, and you can be let's look at all the different color skins in our family, and and so she's struggling with how do I affirm my different identities when sometimes she's being told one of her identities is bad, and sometimes she's being told that her identity, that part, it doesn't matter, that she has a different color skin than me, and matter even in a good way, right? That's part of who she is, and she has all these other traditions because of who she is. And so I look at it in terms of my child even, and how do I talk to her about those things? How do I talk to her about valuing who you are when she's already received quite a few negative experiences, right?
Yeah, we can't run away from those experiences, and that's something to think about because people treat you a certain way, and for someone to say, oh, I'm colorblind, and so you don't even want to know anything about me because my race is something that's so significant to me.
And often it's somebody who is colorblind who's saying those things.
So I want to
saying you are.
Do I need to turn something on? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
So I was the one that raised my hand and said, why do you care? And so you didn't answer based on the question, so I'm going to rephrase it. So why do we care to treat people that look differently? Why do we do that? Why do we think because you're black and I'm a police officer and I'm going to stop you, that you're what? Black, a problem, an issue, ugly, wrong, a thief, unintelligent? Why? Why do we care that? In 2016, all the people that we see, everything that's going on, why do we still talk about the differences in a way we all know
things are happening differently to different people. Why do we keep doing that? Why do we care to continue to do that? That's what I meant by why do we care?
Yes, thank you. So,
I guess I wish.
I wish we had like another 30 minutes to go into that because
30 hours.
I have everything to say. I just want to let
But
you
you know, to me, part of it is about privilege and this fear of giving up privilege.
Yeah.
You know, and if we really are all equal, things might feel a little different,
Yeah.
right? And it might not feel quite as rosy for, quote, people like me. And I think there's a fear of what that might feel like. In South Africa, when they were just ending apartheid, the whites in South Africa were like, oh my God, what is a black government gonna do? A black government, they're gonna oppress us like we oppress them. And then the black government says, we're gonna do this truth and reconciliation campaign. We are gonna try to approach all this hate with love, right? And it's been messy, and you know, nobody's saying it's perfect, but the black government versus the white government said, no, we're actually gonna try to do things really different than you did. But the white government's fear was, if they come in power, what's gonna happen, right? Because they knew how they had treated people in the past. So I mean, I think there's a lot of fear embedded in it, and a lot of privilege, and a lot of, what would it look like if we didn't have that? Which is a very inadequate answer, but in the minutes we have, it's
Such a
start.
deep question, I feel. So I have time for about one more. Okay. 2 questions.
This is more so a comment. A lot of the problems that I find when people are colorblind, I personally feel those same problems when we talk about racially categorizing people, especially because I come from a mixed background, but I don't look like it. And I hate being categorized as white. So as much so as we want to celebrate our differences, and that's kind of the conversation that surrounds being colorblind, I think what's more important, especially in a day and age when people are becoming more mixed, is that we sort of celebrate each other's ethnicities and even our nationalities, as opposed just to our racial identifications. And I think that's, to me, more important in the conversation.
Well, you know what you're saying, that's really powerful, is this question of what, instead of saying, what am I, say, who am I, right? And some of us don't get the, well, what are you question. I don't know if you've ever asked people. You've been asked that?
Oh yeah, especially in Miami, I've been asked that a lot, but even here in Colorado also.
Nobody's ever asked me that.
Oh, what are you? No? It's actually not the best feeling when somebody, especially in Colorado, walks up to you and says, you know, I was just wondering, what are you? Where are you from? And so really there's really a question there of where are you from? You have an accent, or, you know, are you multiracial? Are you biracial? But there's
and
some...
what's that need, right? The need to categorize. And when they don't know the discomfort that they feel, and like, why are we doing that? What's it satisfy in us to say, oh, yes, you're whatever.
And especially sometimes in that moment, that may not be the most significant thing to me, but it happens. It definitely happens. It's just I'm just taken a little off guard when it happens sometimes.
Because it's always telling you you're an outsider, right?
Yes.
Oh, I thought I belonged. Oh, whoops, you're right, I don't.
And I wanted to go back to that comment because it's such. So I'm doing my dissertation now, and what has been coming up is these 4 Black men. They're talking about, they're international students, and they're talking about their experiences and being a lot of the time categorized as African American, and they were just trying to navigate that. And because sometimes we're so focused on racial diversity, we miss the other forms of diversity that exist.
Yeah. If you haven't seen it yet, Trevor Noah has a special. It's called African American, but he's from South Africa. So we would consider him Black here, but he wasn't there because of their racial caste system, right? And he goes all into this, like he came here and he wanted to be Black, and you know, so if you haven't watched it, it's a super funny hour, and he really, from an outsider's point of view, looks at racial categories here and how confused he is by all of them.
I'm very confused by it. But let's get to that question.
Okay. My children were born with Waardenburg's syndrome, and it's where you have no pigment in certain areas, so they even had a darker tan than I did. So they were very confused, and they very self-conscious that now, you know, it's their trademark. You know, they have a beautiful white streak, especially my daughter, that people would kill for that. She's very proud to say, this is my birthmark, this is who I am, rather than hiding herself and wearing a jacket, because she was teased. So that's why I say I'm colorblind. I have a European descent as well as Native American, and I'm very proud of who I am, and I'm Jewish. I mean Catholic, and we have a wide diversity of, so, a confused family.
But I think that idea of how can we be, if you will, confused to an outside world, like what if we don't have to be confused, right?
Yeah.
Like what if, as I work with people in schools, like what can we do to affirm people's identities in schools, you know, through our curriculum, through our conversations, through the books we choose, through the interaction patterns, you know, how do we affirm who people are, whoever they are, right? And I think that question of like, if we didn't care, maybe we could do that. But there's so much data to show that in schools, we're really bad at affirming who people are.
And we learn all those things in school.
We do. Right? And as, you know, as a parent and as a teacher and as a teacher educator, like, it's the reason I do this work, right? And it's the reason I mess up and I don't get it right all the time, but to like constantly be willing to engage. And I think that's one of the reasons we like the HEDS conference so much,
Yeah.
because people are so willing to engage at this conference.
So I have a question for you.
Yes.
How did you get hair? That's our theme for the conference. So how did you get hair? Not just not driving, you know, coming here, but just.
So, I was born in India. My dad was working there, and that's when I happened to arrive. And we moved to the States when I was 6. And even when I was really, really tiny, I remember like the gross inequalities. And I didn't know them by race then, I didn't know them by class then or nationality, but there were definitely haves and have-nots, and I was always, my family always called me the bleeding heart, even when I was little, and it was not said in a positive way. So, but I feel like having such different experiences from a very, very young age, and then I came to the States, and then I was a social outcast because I listened to my teachers and things like that. And then I've moved around a lot my whole life. And when I was a senior in high school, so my junior year I was in France doing study abroad. My senior year I moved from Ohio to North Carolina. Oh. And in my town there were 3 schools. There was the white school, the black school, and the mixed school, but I didn't know that. And I sat down the first day on senior year in high school, so afraid. And I was like, I sat down next to you, for example, and some kid said to me, come sit on our side of the class. And I was like, okay, somebody wants to be my friend. So I moved over, and it took me a few weeks to figure out that the class was completely, like, right here. See, look, see how you're on your side, I'm on my side.
Oh, so I get
completely racially divided because we were in the mixed school, which meant we all went to the same school, just you sat on your side and I sat on my side, and then who was in the higher level classes. And so I've just had so many formative experiences of noticing these separations. And then as a teacher, I started to notice when I was giving some students privilege and others not. And every now and then I would forget and I would give an opportunity to everybody. And I was like, oh, I didn't know you were good at math. You are. So as a teacher, I ended up not knowing I had these biases until really, really far into it. And once I stopped giving special privileges to special students for however I determined them to be special, students rose. They could just show their brilliance. And so I think that really solidified for me, and it started me on like an active journey of thinking through these issues and thinking about equity and thinking about why do I get some of the privileges I get and what do I want to do about them and when do I just take advantage of them? Because I do.
You navigate that privilege?
Not always on purpose. But, you know, and then what's it mean for me to take advantage of it, and how am I perpetuating privilege through these things? And so now it's a much more active journey than it used to be. But I feel like I've just had time and time again when, I don't know, it was thrown in my face and I couldn't ignore it.
So I actually didn't know that Kathryn was born in India. So that was a new tidbit for me right here.
And my Indian husband was born in Michigan.
So thanks for joining our conversation. Maybe sometime if you see us at Dasburg or Starbucks, just sit at the table and join our conversation.
Yeah.
So thanks for joining us, and
Thank you for asking your questions as well.